Good morning. Hi, y'all. It is Stacy. This is Walking in My Shoes, and we're loving my veteran. Let me grab some coffee here. As usual, y'all know we're not paid professional counselors. If you need help, reach out and get it. And everything on this video is copyrighted to Walking in My Shoes and Loving My Veteran. So, got that out of the way. For those of you who missed the call last night, we had my dear friend um, Janine Lutz on, and affectionately called Mama Lutz. Her story is so amazing, and she was open with us and very honest with us and very raw with us about suicide and the depression and all of the things that she faced and how she has turned that tragedy around. She lost both of her children. It was amazing, and I cannot thank Janine enough for being there with us because she was just so open, and you could feel that emotion. And I think she connected with so many of us that were on the call. So I have to thank her for being there. And if you don't have her book, Live to Tell, it is amazing. So I just want to put that out there. We did that. It was incredible. Again, I cannot tell you enough how I felt about that. What else do we have wonderful going on? Happy Friday. We're gonna talk today more about communications and how we put all that stuff we've talked about over the past few months into play, and that it takes baby steps. It is a situation of baby steps. So if y'all are like me, I am an instant gratification chick. Okay, I want it now. I don't buy the lottery much anymore, but when I bought lottery tickets, I only bought them on the day of the drawing because I didn't want to wait 5 days to find out if I won. Okay, I want instant gratification. And I think a lot of us do that. We are so in to instant gratification. And I can remember going on diets, right? And I needed to lose like 80 pounds. And so 2 days of eating salad, I was expecting to get on the scale and see 20 pounds gone. And that's not the way it works. I'm an instant gratification type chick. So when you start making changes in your life, positive changes in your life, you're going to slip backwards, and you're not going to get those instant gratifications all the time. It won't happen. So I'm just that way. I'm an instant gratification person. That's what I want. I want that instant answer, that instant resolve, that instant success, and it doesn't happen. So when we're sitting here talking about communication and understanding the PTSD brain and understanding the warfighter programming and understanding where they are, they don't understand necessarily where we're at. And I think that was one of the things that we really got off of the call last night with Janine was the veterans that were on there were truly moved by her story because they didn't realize necessarily the outcome. And so we have to be able to see from both perspectives. And when you're relearning to communicate and connect with your veteran, they're not always going to see your side in the beginning. And I know it seems like a lot of work for us, that we're the ones making the change, that we're the ones doing this. But I'm telling you, these baby steps become giant steps down the road, and then they will also elicit that change. So the first thing you have to understand is you got to put instant gratification to the side. Instant gratification is not going to be there. It is tough to understand because you're like, well, I didn't yell at him today, but he didn't do what I wanted him to do. It doesn't work that way. It took me a long time. Okay, so let me just to tell you, this is, I'm only telling you from experience. It didn't work for me either. And I was like angry and frustrated. I'm like, well, I tried this and it didn't work. It did work. It just took time because you build this sense of trust. And how many times, and I've had spouses come and say to me, and reading some of the stories that, well, he did good for 2 days and now we're back. Or he did good for a week and now we're back. And he did good for 5 days and now we're back. That's about trust. And how do you trust them when they do really really well for 3 or 4 days and then they go back to their old behavior? You're like, really? So the same thing happens with us with our communication with them. When we are no longer yelling and we're no longer vomiting and we're trying to have good conversation with them, they don't always trust that's going to happen. They don't trust that it's always going to be a long-term thing for us. They don't always, this is Janine now, they don't always trust that we're going to have this great conversation. They don't always trust that feeling. So you have to understand that that is okay. And it takes baby steps. So they have to get that feeling back from us, just like we have to get that feeling from them. And all of that plays out. So those baby steps are important steps. That's why I tell you one thing at a time. Remember, we talked about rights, that we have certain rights. Don't compromise your rights to have good communication. Okay, you can do that. You can change the tone. You can change the timing, but don't change your message. And those all take baby steps. Because the one thing a veteran absolutely, good morning, Sarah, the one thing a veteran absolutely positively has to have is consistency. Consistency. So if you're bouncing all over the place in your delivery, and one day you're holding firm to your boundaries, and the next day you're not, guess what happens? They don't know where you're at. So you got to stay firm to your boundaries, but you can change the way you communicate, and that is baby steps. And they want to see that consistency. They want to see that consistency. I posted a video a couple days ago I was out training, and I didn't realize at the time Carl and I were looking at it, it was actually when he was there. But we were talking about, I remember them like doing their little gas chamber thing, and like he said, it was the on and off, the deafing on, deafing off, on and off, on and off. It becomes a habit and it's consistent, and they did it the same way every single time, so that it became habit and it became routine, and they didn't have to think about it and they didn't have to process it. So when you're consistent in your delivery and you're consistent in the way you find that you're going to communicate, whether it's in the morning or in the evening or whatever time that you set up for your time, when you're consistent in that and you're consistent in your message, in your delivery, it becomes something that they expect, and they're not looking for the unexpected. Go back to the mindset. They are always looking for danger. They're always, change will freak them out. Y'all know this. That's why we don't go to the store with us very often, because change freaks them out. Okay, so when you're planning on your communication with them, stay consistent in your message and in your delivery method. Now, I'm not saying you're not going to go back to yelling if that's their trigger, or I'm not saying you're going to say something hateful, and I'm not saying that you're going to blow up, because you will. But for the most part, if you stay consistent in what you will and will not, in your wants and your rights and your boundaries and the things that you will not have done to you, and you stay consistent in that message, and you stay consistent in your tone, that baby step will create giant steps down the road. I can remember early on when Carl and I would have arguments, and they got heated a lot. Okay, we did, because here you got the yeller person, right, and him, and ooh, it was ugly, and the two PTSDs, and all the baggage, and all the junk, and things never got anywhere. And so I remember saying to him, tell me how you want me to be. Tell me how you want me to be. And I think that was one of the single things that pissed him off more than anything else I could have said. And he says, I want you to be the strong woman that I fell in love with. So he didn't want me to change, although I took it that way. So consistency and not selling out who you are matters. Those baby steps, the consistency, they take time. And when you learn it with a little something, and then they see that you're going to hold true to that, don't make your first commitment to change to be something major. Start small. It builds your confidence. It makes little changes. Okay, it is important. You can see a positive result coming out. All that happens, right? And they build a sense of trust so that the next time you go to the next step, they're going to have more faith in that. Right? So just think about that. I've done construction in my life, right? I mean, I can frame up anything if I so chose to. But you don't come out of the gate, okay? Like even as a paramedic, I became a first responder first, and then I went to EMT school, and then I became a paramedic, and then I did critical care. You don't come out and say, hey, today I'm going to be a critical care paramedic, and just walk out there and think you know what all that equipment does. So you just don't start there. You have to start in those baby steps. You have to start in those baby steps. I had to learn, how to start an IV, for crying out loud. I had to learn how to stop bleeding. I had to learn all this stuff before I could get to the level I got. And that's what happens in your relationship when you build it. Don't compromise your values. Don't not have your rights, because we have them, right? Good morning, Stephanie. Don't compromise those things at all, ever, but baby steps are how it works. And so when I made the comment to him, well, you tell me how you want me to be. I'm not going to do that anymore. This is who I am. Like it, love it. I don't really give a squat anymore. I mean, I do. That's not what I'm saying. But this is who I am. I'm not changing who I am to become somebody you want, because then I'm not true to me. And that is important. So, like, if you don't want to be yelled at in the middle of a conversation and an argument, you have the right, and you say, stop. I'm going to go take a breath. You're not going to yell at me. So, we may get, how often do we get the yelling, and then the hateful words come next, and the yelling. And we've all heard it. I mean, we've all heard that this is what happens, whether it's happening to you or not. We know that this is part of the conversation. So you can't go in and say, hey, you're not going to talk to me like that, raise your voice at me, yell at me, cuss at me, and say hateful things to me, because how many steps did you just give them? In day one of this change, how many steps did you just give them? You can't give them 5. You're not going to yell at me. Right? So that's your boundary. You're not going to yell at me. So now you're going to take a step back, because it's one of the things you're not allowing in your bubble anymore is yelling. You're not going to yell at me. You take a step back and you say, time out. I'm going to listen to what you have to say, but you're not going to yell at me. So let me just breathe for a minute and then sit back down and finish your conversation. Right? If the ugly words come out, okay, that's one of those things you have to suck up today, because the reality is we don't want any of it, right? We don't want any of it. But if it changes one thing at a time, and the yelling goes away, or the screaming goes away, or the anger goes away, guess what happens really quickly? All those really ugly words go away, because those really ugly words and that really hatefulness all comes out of anger when they're angry. So a lot of that will go away. And it may not all go away, so then that's the next step you address. but you've addressed one thing, and one thing in your life is better. And now it was a baby step, but it was better. So you get that better. I think Stephanie and her husband use Sunday check-ins. So no matter what they've done in the week, they have a time on Sunday that they sit down and they check in with each other and get back on that same page. And that works for them, and that's their skill, their whatever. And that's when they know that it's their time to have a conversation. And we all will find that. Everybody will find it. It is different for everybody, but the key cores are still there. It's going to take baby steps. You know, I'm sure, and I can't speak for her, but you know, like even Carl and I didn't say, okay, today we're going to sit down and we're going to have an hour and a half long conversation and we're going to talk uninterrupted about whatever. That ain't going to work on day one. It doesn't work on day one. We now have long conversations that are meaningful, but they didn't come out on day one. They came out a little piece on day one, and a little bit more on day 10, and a lot more on day 15 or 20. And then we may have gone back to day one again because we just weren't syncing. And then by the end of a month, we were at a different place. And now 6 months into this process of learning how to recommunicate, we can talk for hours. He spent a whole day talking to me about his military experiences, an entire day. That was huge for us. So, but it doesn't start at day one. It's his baby steps. Those are Carl's words. He uses them all the time. Baby steps, baby steps, baby steps. I look at even loving my veteran and where we've gone since July. You know, it was 3 people sitting around a table, and I wrote a few little posts and blogs and did some stuff. And now look at where we are. We're not even a year into this game. We're not even a year into this, and look at where we are in our growth. But it took baby steps. I can't tell you how many times it took him, and it hurt my feelings. Okay, I'm going to take it hurt my feelings when he said, baby steps, honey. You can't do all this at one time. I'm like, wait a minute, I can't do all this at one time. And he says, baby steps. And my feelings were hurt now. I don't mind telling you. But he was right. You have to do it in baby steps. You have to get focused. You have to, you can see the big picture, but what are the steps to get you to the big picture? My mom is so good at saying, don't jump off into the river or the pit of what ifs if you can take the step across the bridge one step at a time. And I didn't understand that. I didn't get that. I do now. You know, and the illness has made a big difference. And when I was talking to Janine yesterday, she said to me, don't ever speak that you're dying again. You're living today, and that's what matters. And we get caught up in the what ifs. What if I make this change and it doesn't affect him? Okay, so it doesn't, but it will. It will. It may not be the change that works for you, but when you hold your values and when you hold your stance and when you take that baby step and you become consistent and you put you first and you learn to heal you first, that is critical. And then take your baby steps as far as communication goes. You're not going to get instant change. It doesn't happen. Instant gratification does not happen. It's baby steps. And it's tough. And it's hard for us to understand. But it will happen. And it will change. And, you know, this has been, you know, I think about our PTSD journey and all the things that have happened with Carl and I in the last year or so. I think about our journey. And so many people are like, how hard is it to live with a veteran with PTSD? Is PTSD this? First of all, we don't let PTSD control our lives. That's number one. We, in our relationship, we don't let PTSD control our life. Granted, I spend a lot of time talking about it, and he helps me through a lot of this because he does allow it into my life and into our home a whole lot longer than most people could ever even imagine because of what we do. Um, but PTSD no longer controls our life. That's number one. Number two, and Carl said this last night. He's not broken, and he said this to me early on before we ever met. When we were still talking on the phone. I'm not broken. I'm just bent. So I think that was important to understand. Okay, so you can't let PTSD control your life. You can't let PTSD define them. You can't let being the spouse of somebody with PTSD define you. You have to take care of you. You have to know what qualities you have that you bring to the table. I had to learn that all over again. And it is phenomenal in what I've learned. So those are the baby steps that we all take. I was a year ago, in January 1st of last year, I was at the top of my world. You know, we were going on a little trip. I had the love of my life in my life. I had a great job. And by the 7th of January, my whole life changed. And the thing is that I am better now than I ever was then. I'm better now than I was January 1st when I thought I was on top of my game because for the first time, I know who I am. And I kind of learned to like me. And that was hard. It was hard to learn to like me and to see where I could grow. And you're going to find this through this journey. You're going to find you. And that is amazing. But don't let all of this define you. These baby steps that you take are making you stronger every day. I know Stephanie goes to the gym. I assure you, she rides a bike and she sweats and she'll call me sweating like out of breath, right? It's hysterical. I love it. There are little messages, out of breath. But I assure you, she didn't get on that bike on day one and get to where she is today. She didn't do that. It's all the baby steps that we take that get us there. And you're going to find your journey and your communication is going to change, and you're going to be stronger than you ever knew, and your relationship can be stronger. And yes, we have setbacks, and yes, we have frustrations, and yes, we have days where we go back to the mentality we had at almost day one and say, why am I still here? I can't do it anymore. We all have them. We all have them. My mother, who was married to my dad, high school sweethearts until the day he died, said there were days she asked herself, why am I still here? That's not a PTSD thing, y'all. That's a relationship thing. But it's all the baby steps we take that keep our relationship growing. And then they become giant steps. It's important. You're not going to expect change overnight. It's time consuming. I didn't change overnight, but I guess I did without even realizing it. All the little things that I did along the way, all of a sudden I woke up and I'm like, oh my gosh, look at where we are. I hated the sound of my own voice. I did radio for a while, but I hated the sound of my own voice. I hated it. And I do this every day. I speak every day, and I hated the sound of my own voice. That was a lot for me to come out and do. That was a huge hurdle for me. It was a huge hurdle for me to think that I could pick up the phone and call Janine Lutz the Mama Lutz, and talk to her. And her and I are dear friends. It was a lot for me to think that I could do that. And that's where we are in our own growth. You guys are stronger than you ever were before. Look at everything you've accomplished, and you are stronger than you ever were before, and it is baby steps along the way. And all of a sudden, you wake up and you say, how did I get here? How did I get here? Because you took the steps and you put in the time and you did the work, and it was little changes, and all of a sudden it became a big change. You're going to find that in your personal life. You're going to find that in your communication skills with your veteran. You're going to find that in your relationship with them. It's all going to come in a slew of baby steps. And you're going to wake up one day and say, oh my gosh, look where I've gone. And we do that. And you guys do that every day. Every day you guys do that. And you may not realize it, and you may need this love and this strength that comes from yourself. And you may need to be picked up and said, as our community, that we love you and you're stronger than what you think, because you are. You are all stronger than what you think, but it's come from baby steps. It's come from putting in the work. It's come from following a plan. It's come from making positive changes. It's come from communicating with each other. It's come from all of this stuff that has made you stronger, and it all started one step at a time. You can't expect instant changes. It takes a lot of baby steps. And when you get there, all of a sudden those baby steps become giant steps. And how many times have you seen the guys reach the summit of Mount Everest? Right? There's no chairlift that takes you to the summit of Mount Everest. Those people put in the work and they climb that path one step at a time. One step at a time. It's never easy, but it is so worth it. Those guys that got to the summit of Mount Everest, they climbed it one step at a time, and only a handful of people in the entire world have ever seen that view in person. There's no chairlift that takes you there. They put in the work, and they got the results. And that's where we are. We're putting in the work every day. We put in the work. And we may not see the rewards of that work. But you're going to wake up one day and you're going to be like, oh my gosh. When I talk about rewards of the work, every morning I get up and I have my morning meeting with Michelle, and then Carl gets up, and we've done coffee. Every morning when I get up before I do this, and I go get a shower and do what I have to do. Do you know every morning he comes in and makes sure my computer's right, the lights are right, that I have coffee, that I have everything that I need? I don't even do that. When I first started doing videos, he was like, I'm not going to be on them, I'm not going to be part of them, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that. I went in a lot myself in bed and learned how to use a camera all by myself. I don't do that anymore. He does every bit of it because it's important to him, that it's important to me. Those are the changes and the baby steps that I don't expect it. I appreciate it, and I tell him that. And it was, and today, this was so funny. So today he brought my phone and everything in here, and I was running late because I got talking to somebody for a minute, and I was running late, and he had all my stuff in here, and I gave him a big hug and kiss and says, thank you, baby. And Siri says, you're welcome. I was like, oh good, Siri, you didn't move squat. He did. But Siri literally said, you're welcome. And I just thought that was so funny. But those are the things you look for. You don't look for the resolve to the PTSD. You don't look for the resolve for everything to go away. Your relationship's going to grow, and it's all those little itty-bitty things that make a difference. It's every one of those that make a difference. Take your baby steps. Enjoy those victories. Because I'm telling you, when you take giant steps and think that's what you're going to do, one, you're going to get exhausted taking the big old steps. Two, you're gonna not see the beauty along the way. You're not gonna take the time to enjoy the beauty through your journey. And why this journey is hard, because nobody said it was easy. And why this journey is painful, because nobody said it was easy. And I'm not just talking about the journey with our veteran, I'm talking about our personal journeys in growing us. You get to see parts of you never imagined. You get to see parts of your relationship you never imagined. You're going to get to see the victories along the way. It's the little things. It's the little things along the way, those baby steps. And if you try to jump from here to here, you're never going to see them. And that's important. Growth is important. Personal growth, relationship growth, communication growth. It all comes from baby steps. You know, it's spring. And down here in the south, we got our tomato plants already up in the store. And you got your little itty bitty wiry looking tomato plants. You can't expect them to grow a tomato that will fit. In the south, we eat tomato sandwiches with some Duke's mayonnaise and salt and pepper. I'm just telling you. Mater sandwiches, we can call them mater sandwiches with Duke's mayonnaise and salt and pepper. And that's like the ritual that the southern folks down here get looking excited for every single year when spring comes, when summer comes, and those tomatoes are fresh. I ain't talking about nothing out of the grocery store. I'm talking off the vine red when you cut them, the juice is running kind of tomato. But you can't expect that little itty bitty tomato from the Lowe's or that you plant from a seed to get you a tomato that will fit on your sandwich on day one. It takes 60 days for them to get mature. Trust me, I know. And then the hardest part is they grow when they're green and they're the size they're supposed to be. Right? They're that size. And then it takes them forever to get red. And it makes me like, yeah, it's one of those things. But you have to be patient, and it's those baby steps along the way. And that's where we are. In our whole life, in our whole growth, we are going to be so much better because of our baby steps. So that's what I have today. I hope y'all have a blessed rest of your Friday. Kick off to the weekend. Do something for you. Enjoy your time. You never know when I'm going to pop them. Girl, you like them green and fried? I can't even do a fried green tomato. I mean, I don't mind them. I've had a few. But I don't do fried pickles. Okay, that's like the grossest thing ever. I'm just saying. And no, you're not coming down to steal all of my green tomatoes so you can fry them. No, I want mine red with Duke's mayonnaise, sister. Let's just tell you. So, hey, baby. Y'all have a great weekend. I'm Stacy. This has been Walking in My Shoes, and we are loving my veteran. Take time to love yourself and your veteran. Bye.